Thank you for listening to Permission Granted. I'm your host, Juliet Ricci Legman. On the pod today, we have Rhianna Basore. She is a creative. I met her in a fellow coaching group. She's the owner of Sunflower Entertainment. She's also a money mindset coach, an actor, and more. So we're gonna learn about her today. Rhianna, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here, Juliet.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for joining. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Happily. I am a professional creative and money coach for high achieving creative women. I have spent my life honing in on the stories that I'm born to tell, and I empower others to do the same so we can fully realize our financial dreams as the money superpower in our life.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And you are kind of working on a few creative projects right now, launching a media company. Tell me about that.
Yes, I in so many ways feel like we're always becoming a better version of ourselves. And it really is a culmination of a lifelong of learning. I started as a professional actor. I went to NYU. I had my first gig when I was 16 doing summer Shakespeare. And I really embraced that actor lifestyle. But I reached a point in my life where I felt that I couldn't move forward given the skills that I had. And that
Hmm.
embodied itself in an opportunity where I was performing in New York, off Broadway, living my dream. And my grandfather died. And
Oh,
I was in New York performing in this play that I loved with people that I loved. And I couldn't afford to be home with my family on my one day
oh,
off. And I said, you know
oh,
what? There just has to be a better way. It doesn't have to be this hard to be a passionate creative out in the universe. So I took
yeah.
some time to figure out what I didn't know. Turns out it's called money and business skills. Didn't see
Oh,
it
yes.
coming. And I created my financial coaching company, Self Trust Fund. And
Mm.
through working through my own money issues and then those of my clients, I realized that when I built businesses around money, my creative businesses grew too. And in that
Wow.
way, I was being invited to direct shows. I've never directed in my life. I was being invited to produce films. Turns
Mm.
out business skills are universal. And
Yeah.
as I was having these incredible growth opportunities and all the fear and all the excitement that comes along with growth, I felt that calling of my own creative spirit saying, what about me? I'm so
Oh.
happy to support others, but what about my creative imaginings and visions?
Mm-hmm.
And that became a one-woman show based on a chapter in an art history book I happened upon,
Oh.
a dear beloved spirit in my life. And I said to her, you know, there's this female artist who I think has a really compelling story, but I don't know what the story is. And the next thing I know, we're collaborating to make this one woman show out of nothing.
And this is the one woman show that will take place in Toronto.
That's right. So we are going to
Okay.
do our workshop production in Canada this summer in Toronto. She's based there. She and her husband have produced a number of their own creative projects, and they're just really warm ground for me to nurture this return to my creative self. For a long
Yeah.
time, as I was on my money and business journey, I was like, but what about me as a maker? Where is
Mm.
that little actress who just wanted to tell stories? What happened to her?
Yeah.
And one day I had the incredible opportunity of being in a rehearsal at the Old Globe Theater here in San Diego.
Oh, wow.
And I was watching these top level creative storytellers, and I had this overwhelming urge to be there with them. And that's when
Oh,
I knew my muse was calling me, and the story showed up shortly after that.
I love it. And did you grow up in New York?
So I was a military kid. So I was born in
Oh,
San Diego, but I have lived everywhere, Virginia, Mississippi, New Mexico. I did go to college. I went to NYU and I stayed there for the first bunch of years of my creative career. I went to DC. I got a 2-year contract in Florida. I lived in
wow.
Toronto. I have lived so many places. But there's something about homecoming that
Mhm.
felt inevitable, much the same way coming back to my art feels inevitable.
Yes,
And so I've
that's
been based
beautiful.
out of, thank you. I've been based out of San Diego off and on for several decades, actually, and it's served me so well. I've done shows in Paris. I've gone back to
Oh,
New York and done off-Broadway shows more than once. It really has been a nurturing place to live so that then I
mm.
can go and expand outward in other places.
I love it so much. And I've never been to San Diego actually. I hear the weather is pretty much perfect all year.
It's very stunning. I'm not gonna lie to you. You just look out the window and you're inspired.
Oh my gosh. So, I want to talk more about, can you tell me your experience or what you're finding the connection between the money growth mindset, that business side, and the creative side, like how the two connect and how, because we all hear about the starving artist, obviously. I went to art school. Kind of, and you have to suffer for your art, but how do you bring that growth mindset to it financially and connect the creative?
Absolutely. Well, I think it's pivotal because the starving artist is an inherited belief from the Romantic period of the Victorian age. So that's like at this point, 150 years ago. You
Yep.
know what else they didn't have then? Cars, computers, television. That was a long time ago. Women couldn't even vote.
Yeah.
So this is a bygone age belief, and we need to kick it to the curb because we are currently in an age where technology can make everything that's existed before. But what it
Yeah.
can't make is new ideas. And guess who has new ideas all the time? Creative.
All the time.
We are the fuel of the economy, and yet we see ourselves as begging for jobs, taking
Yep.
dimes for hard-earned art pieces. And it's absolutely ridiculous because we are the fuel of what's coming. We are the life force of our culture, and that
Yeah.
includes financially. And so when we are able to really step into that sense of power and voice and choice and activation, we're no
Mhm.
longer asking to be accepted, begging to be paid. We are entering as someone who is a key piece of the puzzle that without that piece, nothing else exists.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so this has been my experience over the past few months because I quit my 9 to 5 job and I've been, venturing out podcast, yep,
Do
my
it.
books and I started on the side a decluttering business to be my bread and butter and just kind of get me to where I want to go creatively. But I couldn't, I'm just going to be honest, I couldn't have done any of it if I hadn't received a little bit of an inheritance. And so I think about that all the time, how it freed my headspace to be able to come up with ideas and take action on these
Yes.
ideas. Yeah,
Yes. Well, thank you for the vulnerability of sharing that with us. There is no need to be secret about that. Those are the gifts that you've received because of a legacy that is behind you. And what
yeah.
you have done is taken that legacy, I hope that was loving and wonderful, and turn that into a way to love and value yourself.
Mm,
So often, in our hustle culture, we're taught to work harder, but that's the opposite of what creatives need. I actually believe we have a cycle of three things. One of them
ooh,
is output. Yes, we need to make, we need to practice, we need to be in the rehearsal studio, we need to sketch everywhere we go, we need to journal. We also need to rest. They talk
thank
about in
you.
exercise that the recovery day is sacrosanct. We need recovery days as creatives. If I'm on
Yep,
set crying my brains out about whatever, I can't then run a marathon the next day or put in a 12-hour day writing my master novel. It's just
yep.
antithetical to the really great work that is going to make us those true sharing creatives that are moving things forward in the conversation. But there's a
Word.
word, right? And there's a third, Juliet, which is inspiration. We can't
Mm,
create if we're in an empty container. We need to
yep.
read books. We need to go to the movies. We need to be in nature. We need to go to meditate. We need to move our bodies. We need to do these things that feed us, that nourish the creative spirit, your soul, if you believe in that, so that when it's time to have that bing, bing, bing of inspiration, you have raw material to
Yes.
metabolize into creativity. And without that
Yes.
sacred cycle of three, you are running the most valuable thing in your business down, which is
Which
yourself.
is you. Ding, ding, ding.
Exactly.
Okay, I want to talk about the rest part again because I'm, a recovering workaholic and I just can't talk about this enough. How rest is productive. And over the past few months, my life coach and I have worked on like I went through breast cancer. So, hey, you need to rest. You got to take care of yourself. And um rest is productive so we can be our best selves, make good decisions, and also so we can kind of understand what's going on politically around us and, sort of give a damn about it and do something about it if we're intending to do that. I mean, it's very important.
Have to have room. You have to
Yeah.
have space. And if you're filled up with striving and struggle, there is no space to take in new information, to be moved by what's going on around you, to offer fully of yourself
Mhm.
spontaneously. If it's always your goals, your to-do list, what you don't have, where you struggle, what somebody said about you, you're not coming from a generous place.
Yeah.
Creativity is an act of love. And
Mhm.
loving is being generous, just as your family was with you. And so, if we are not giving purely of ourselves because we have it to give, then what we're giving is conditional. And the thing
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
conditional giving is it never rewards the giver. And so when
Ooh.
we give ourselves rest, we are taking that time to allow spaces for other things to come in. We
Mhm.
are taking care of our health. We are saying, I am worth more than what I earn and what I make. It is
Oh,
standing in our holiness as
chills.
humans.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that because I just got chills when you said that. I have been grappling with this. It's always like a little, I don't know, little monkey running in the back of my mind. You and what the monkey says to me is you have to work hard. You have to work hard and to make money, and you also have to justify your existence. So you better go work and work your ass off, and it's got to be hard, and it's got to be long hours and all of those things. And the monkey also says, how are you gonna make money? So I want to talk more about this because this is fascinating.
Yeah. Yes, so your monkey reminds me of what I call the money monsters.
Mhm.
And the money monsters are like when we're a kid and we're in our bed and the room is dark and we're like under the covers. And it's like all of a sudden we know that there's something under the bed. We're positive there's something in the closet that is gonna kill us any moment. And so we yell and we yell and we yell. And hopefully whoever's in the house with us comes upstairs and says, "What is the matter?" And we say, "There is a monster under the bed." And they, of course, turn on the light. And what happens? There's no monster there.
Yeah.
And so maybe they read us a story, give us a cuddle, get us some water, pat us on the head, tell us, go back to bed. Off comes the light. They go back downstairs. And what happens? The monster's back. And you yell, the same thing happens. There's still no monster there. And so when a money monster is present, it's exactly the same thing. We are convinced that there is something in our life that is going to come and eat us if we aren't
Mhm.
vigilant and protected. And yet when we turn on the light, there's nothing there. And
Yeah.
so when we deal with our money monsters, we are creating that space, much like rest, to allow those next level ideas to come in. Because one of the
Mm.
things that I have noticed with my creative clients, especially, is a workhorse mentality. We believe
Okay.
that suffering embodies our art. That is
Yep.
not necessarily true. That is an industrial age innovation to keep people working hard so they don't have capacity to come up with new revolutionary ideas. They, it also is a matter of when it comes to a creative career, it's personal to everyone. It isn't
Hmm.
a clear path in the way of like copying someone's business plan, right?
Yeah.
One of the differences, because you were asking how are they similar, one of the differences between business and creative business is that you can copy someone else's business model. People do it all the time. Uber and Lyft, FedEx,
Yes.
yes, they do it all. McDonald's, Burger King, everybody does it. It's very straightforward. There is no creative business that's alike because it is based on your essence and your ability to maximize your opportunities. That is
Hmm.
a path that you are crafting at every step. And it requires presence to know when the opportunity happens and be ready for it and embrace it. And when
Uh,
there's a money monster gnawing in the back of your head saying, hey, not good enough. Hey, not enough money. Hey, not a real job. You are not able to recognize the opportunity and maximize it when it shows up, which keeps you stuck, broke, and afraid, which is what
mhm.
the money monster says you are. It is creating a self-fulfilling cycle, which proves the money monster right, and you can stay friends forever.
So there's that, a couple things. There's that when people, win the lottery and then they end up going broke because that is where they see themselves. And this is what I'm really interested in sort of tackling personally because, you know, I if I recognize if I see myself at this level, whatever level that is, that's where I'm going to be comfortable. That's where I'm going to put myself, and so okay, how do you get beyond that?
Yes. And so there's so much in what you said that I think a lot of people will recognize, and many of my clients have struggled with it. One of it is limiting beliefs, right? There's a fabulous book called The Big Leap by
I
Gay
was just going to
Hendricks.
say.
Yes. And it's so true, which is when we get a sudden burst of finances, and that can be lottery, that can be inheritance, that can be selling your business, et cetera, retirement, there is a dissonance between your identity and your reality. And
Yeah.
because of that, you are going to take your reality down to your identity. And what so much of money mindset and money empowerment work is about building that bigger container so that when the reality matches the bigger identity, you can hold it.
Hmm.
I was a
Yeah.
yoga teacher and yoga teacher trainer before the pandemic. And one of the things that we talked about as a teacher was holding space for the growth of our students. And
Hmm.
we need to
Yeah.
do that for our future selves. There is like a little wobbly child in all of us, but we need to hold space for when we can stand our ground and speak our mind and say what we're worth. And when we
Hmm.
do that, the opportunity comes, we do it, we stick the landing. And
Yes.
so, really finding the ways to build into that bigger self is essential. So, when
Hmm.
it is there, we can land it. And then from that place, we have a bigger platform to share of our talents.
Hmm. And the piece that I always, because I your mind could go to, well, there's war and this and homeless people and what why bother when things are falling apart? Why bother with making things better for myself? But when you do that, you set an example for everybody else that they can do the same. And that is kind of the mission I'm on. That is what gets me out of bed in the morning is like I want to set an example so other people can see that this can be done, even though it's really scary, and then they can up level and free themselves essentially.
Yes, and no one's suffering alleviates other people's suffering.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. That's a fallacy based in a well-intended sense of empathy. It is only through shining our light and spreading joy and connection and being generous with ourselves that we are helping others who are struggling with things that we aren't struggling with in that moment. Everybody
Hmm.
has their own challenges, but there is a scale in terms of many different severities.
Yeah.
as creatives, we are uniquely able to paint what's possible. Our entire purpose is to create things that aren't there. That includes better realities, better dreams, better outcomes, better senses of self. And so, if we're
Yeah.
not weaving our magic towards what's possible, the world is not able to see it.
Hmm.
There's a
Yeah.
beautiful story in one of Augustin Burroughs' memoirs where he had struggled, unfortunately, with addiction and had gone away for treatment. And when he came back, he realized that his walls were stacked with whiskey bottles, three deep, but he never saw the whiskey bottles. He saw the wall behind them. And it
Ah.
was only by doing his healing that he was able to see the reality versus what he saw in his brain. And I think that's such
Mm.
a beautiful testament to the power of the brain to tell us what it thinks is true. And
Yeah.
then for healing to give us a real sense of what is happening because he could now take the bottles away and paint the wall. He could have so many different choices. But because of his mindset, he only saw the limitations of the wall. He didn't see the reality.
I love this so much. What are your feelings on with creativity and creating things? Because as humans, we were born to create. We were
Here,
created. Um, I can't say that enough.
here.
What there's always, one of the arguments you always hear, and I'll mention Liz Gilbert and her book Big Magic.
I love Liz Gilbert, love Big Mouth. Yes.
Woohoo! Is that everything's been done before? Well, yeah, of course everything's been done before, but it's not been done by you. So, any insights on that?
Yeah, thank you. This is one of the biggest things because I am working on my writer self, and it's like, there's only five stories or whatever it is, but there is so many more aspects to that. So I was in a voice lesson yesterday, and we were talking
Mm,
about breath. And he was saying you have to release the spots of tension so that the air can go into all the pockets inside of you. And in that way, people are truly hearing your natural voice. It is
mm,
inhabiting your body, your rib cage, all the spots and pockets within you. Creativity is the same. The more that we can open up to truly allow our life force, our breath, our voice, our creativity to flow through this inhabited shape, the more we are creating something unique to us. And that can be Romeo and Juliet,
mhm.
Cinderella, Star Wars, but it won't be the same. It will be the way that if you ever go to like a family event and there's like a family argument of who makes the best potato salads, there's like five kinds of potato salad. Somebody loves each of those potato
Yep.
salads and they're all delicious, but they're in the image, in the taste of that maker. Doesn't mean
Mm,
the other potato salads aren't good. They just aren't to the taste. And
yep.
when we are able to truly create to the all the pockets of our being, we are saying most fully, this is what I'm capable of. And
Yeah.
then our audiences can find us, our buyers can find us, our collaborators can find us. It's only when we're trying to match the way that other people do it, UPS,
Yeah.
FedEx,
Yeah.
Lyft, when we're doing those exact copies, trying to have someone else's career, someone else's way of showing up in the world, then we're hiding that light under a barrel and they
It
can't find it.
comes it comes from a place of scarcity. And so
Absolutely.
you start with that, you end with that.
Exactly. When we're little kids, we're like, I'm the best singer, I'm the best dancer, I'm the best writer. Look. And yet at some point, we decide that the way other people do it is better. That's
Yeah.
not true. There are folk artists that would never get into art school that people love. There are folk singers who are not classically trained, and they're timeless. People
They're
love
the
them.
best.
They're the best. And so to say, this outside of me thing is better, I need to be that, is to betray your intrinsic value as a maker, as a creative.
Can
And
we
that
just
is when
pause
you give
there?
your worth away.
Okay, let's repeat that because that is gold. So what you just said is when you, okay, say it again.
Oh,
Something
I
about
can't.
outside of yourself.
Yeah. So I don't remember because I never remember what I say, but it's something along the lines of When you decide something other than yourself is worth more than you are giving your value away, which allows you to put out a mindset of worthlessness, which
Yeah.
then is what's reflected back to be confirmed.
That is really powerful because coming back to the, you know, earning or manifesting or however you want to say, it really is linked to your worth. So if you're always putting other people, saying that they're, I want to word this correctly, more important than you, and you are not capable of creating, then there's a little bit of a disconnect there.
That's right. And it's also like, what is value? I
Hmm.
like who decides it? There's no
Yeah,
Academy of Art in the United States like there was in Paris 200 years ago. Like there's no jury except in our heads.
yeah,
So the
yeah.
sooner we tell the jury to be quiet, the farther we can get in attracting and sharing the best stuff of what we are.
So how do we connect this creativity piece with, because I know this is part of, I want to say the media company. How do we connect this piece of, funding creatives so they have room to breathe and create and funding creative projects and things like that? Like, how do we get there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I always start with money mindset because I realized very early on that I could build as many budgets as I wanted for my clients. I could point them in directions of possibilities and opportunities, but they weren't taking a step if they didn't believe it was possible. So
Mm,
I spend a lot of time on money mindset, which inevitably leads to manifestation because miracles is a complicated word, but things happen out of nowhere.
mhm.
I very early in my career, I had an opportunity to go to an open call for a show I really wanted in New York City. It was in the trades. Everybody lined up. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning. The building wasn't even open. It was snowing. There was hundreds of us on the street just to get in the building to sign up for a 1 minute spot. I did
Yeah.
it. I spent the day doing it. And then I didn't hear anything for 4 months.
Oh my
And
God.
then 4 months later, I got an audition. And then I got a call back. And then I booked the gig. And it took 4 months and hundreds of people. You just never know. And so it is so important to do those small daily micro steps that set you up for the opportunity. But in
Planting the seeds.
that's right. Or the breadcrumbs or
Yeah.
the seeds, like the wildflower seeds, spreading them out because it is those small, consistent actions over time that reap the results.
Mm-hmm.
Early in my money work, I spent too much time talking about money theory, but there's a return on investment
Yeah.
over time, things grow bigger and bigger. They are exponentially growing over time, but you
Mm.
have to take them in the beginning where it seems impossible, where nothing could ever happen. How could that ever happen to me? And then months, sometimes years later, it flowers, and you're like, oh, right. I put sunflower seeds over
Yeah.
in that far lot, and here it is 3 years later, they've bloomed. And so the money mindset allows those daily actions to happen. I really think the action taking is quite simple. We have Google, we have books, we have courses. There are so
Yes.
many ways to get the information. The information isn't the issue. The ability to continue to take the action over time.
Yeah.
That's key. And that's money mindset work. That's money healing from your traumas, all of that stuff, because those are the things that tell us it's not possible. You're
Yeah.
delusional. Get a real job. Those are the money monsters. When we overcome our money monsters and we truly believe they're telling us lies, they're
Hmm.
well-intended lies, but they're lies. Then we can start to look for new possibilities of all the infinite routes we can take our business and all the ways it can be funded. Because there's as many paths as there are people.
Yes, which there's quite a bit. How do you what do you tell your clients about impatience? Because oftentimes, okay, I'll give a great example. 5 years ago, I wrote a book. It's called The Juliet Letters, and I put literally one Facebook post about it, and I thought, okay, this is it. I'm just gonna put this out here and then drop it. And, lo and behold, I think I sold 40 copies or something. And I had I had a book launch party with 8 people, and it was glorious because they were wonderful it was at a coffee shop. It was great. But my point is, I didn't see the realm of possibility. And so I was like, well, it's just not happening. Oh, I have the book here, by the way. It's right here.
Please. Oh, beautiful.
And
Oh,
I just
gorgeous.
want to point out there is a painting in here from when Donald Trump got elected the first time, and it's called Love Always Wins. So just so you know.
I love
um,
that.
but anyhow, I was like impatient. You want to see from very little effort the results immediately, the feedback, the positive feedback. And if you don't get it, uh, oftentimes we give up and like, okay, well, I guess I'm a failure, and then you just move on with your life. But that's not how it works.
Hmm. Yes, I think this is so valuable, Juliet. And I think it's based in comparison, actually, the money
Mhm.
monster of comparison, because we're looking at other people's highlight reel and we're deciding because we didn't get that after minimal effort that it isn't meant to be. And we don't know
Mhm.
that that person hired a publicist or has already done 15 books or their father is an author and told them everything to do or that their influencer
Yes.
is their sister is an influencer. We just don't know. And so it's really important for creatives to figure out what they think the value of what they make is. Because it
Yeah.
comes from nothing, we treat it like it's nothing, but it's not. That book is beautiful. It's an
Mhm.
amazing gift. It's an amazing thing to have around. It's a balm in a difficult time. It's an inspiration for someone going through
Mhm.
a rough period. These are all values. Whereas perhaps that younger Juliet was like, well, it's just a book I came up with. Who knows? What's it really worth? Well, it's worth a lot. And so, because we think of it, oh, it's just a crazy idea I had in my head, it's disposable. We have so many of them, we don't value them. But a realized idea that exists in the world has value. And we need to figure out what that is and who needs it, because
Mhm.
that is where business plans kick in. Because if you know
Yeah.
who needs it and what it's worth, you can start to find them, have conversations with them, create strategies to get to know them and engage them around why something they've never heard of would be worth their $15 or whatever it is.
Yes.
I love creatives madly, but we do sometimes feel a little bit entitled because it's
Mm.
so good to make. We think everyone should automatically know the value of what we make, but that's not how
Yeah.
it works.
It's not.
Getting,
You have to be bold, and you have to be consistent. And those artists, I'll just go to musicians who are hitting it big, and frankly, to me, they're young. They have been doing it for 10 years
yes,
nonstop. And they finally, you're like, oh, she's new. She's an overnight success. No, 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 no.
no, friend.
10 years
It's so
without
true.
fail.
And it's because of relationship.
Mhm.
Everything in business is about relationship. How long they've known about you, who else likes you, getting in the door because somebody's recommended you. And it
Yeah.
takes time to build relationships, just like the first, not since kindergarten has it worked that you can walk up to someone and be like, be my best friend, and then your best
Yeah.
friend. It takes time, especially for adults. We have such
Mhm.
full lives. It takes a while for them to see the value, to engage, to be reciprocal. And each of these stages in business is called a buyer's journey, but in
Mm.
relationships is called getting to know people.
Yep.
And yet,
Yeah.
as artists, we think that we can like be their best friend just because we're like incredibly genius human beings. And like sometimes that's true. There's just absolute magic, like the story I shared with you. But
Yeah.
most of the time, over the long term, we have to respect the relationship time frame
Yeah.
with the people that we're looking to invest in our creative projects.
Yeah, that's very true. And one thing I notice, I'll just speak to my recent experience, is, I would just bury my head in work, so I never had time for any relationships. I'll just say it that way.
Yeah.
And now that I have a little room to breathe, I'm like, actually, I am a pretty engaging person and I really do enjoy this. Yes. And I'm good at it, you know. I just don't enjoy small talk, but I like what the kind of stuff we're talking about.
Yeah.
But uh, uh, it's just like creativity, you have to make time for those relationships.
You do. They take time and they're worth it. My acting teacher says love takes time, love makes time. And I think that just
Ooh,
sums it all up. It's the same for our creativity, for our business, for our health, for our relationships, for everything we do. If we love it, we make time, we take time. And that is
yeah,
what. And
yeah.
something you had brought up earlier that I'm glad you reminded me of is I think there's a real habit in the gig economy of
Mhm.
being grateful for work. And we should always be grateful for work. We should be grateful for everything. We should be grateful to still be here and breathe.
Yep.
But when you are the financial engine of your business, you don't want to be like someone applying for a job. You
Mm,
want to be like the visionary CEO of your company. And so when you're saying, I deserve rest because I get my best ideas after my afternoon nap. I
yep.
have to go for a run after business meetings because I'm all pent up. I need to be in my hyperbolic chamber and whatever. Like, if you listen to CEOs talk, they will tell you what matters to them and they do it.
Hmm.
And yet, as creatives, we think if we work harder, we get more of what we want. But that's how employees speak. So employees
Yes.
say, look at how much I got done. That means I'm valuable. But what do bosses, visionary CEOs say? They say,
Ooh,
oh, I go and have a 2 week retreat to India every year. I go on a safari with my family every
yep.
Christmas, and I come back with the best ideas. Hawaii, golfing, that's my secret. And
Yep.
when we treat ourselves with that same generous, generative energy, we run our own companies because we have those big level ideas.
I know a CEO that is true for, that he built his business and he worked 24/7, but he also prioritized his morning walks, his, family time, his disconnecting from his phone, and you know, the employee, the worker bees, not so much, right? Because you're building the business. Um, but then at some point, some of them were like, "Oh no, I need this sabbatical."
Yes.
But it took a
Burnout
while to
is
get there.
real. Yeah. Well,
Yes.
burnout is real. I had a visionary coach say to me once, she was like, it's like a windmill or a pinwheel. It's like a pinwheel. And it's like at first, it's really hard to get it started. It takes a
Hmm.
lot of energy. But once it's in motion, you can touch it gently and it keeps going. And I do think
Mm.
that anything new is like that. But
Hmm.
because creative business is different than traditional business, I would argue we should never grind 24/7.
Oh, I
You
love this.
yeah,
Yes.
you are killing the financial engine of your business when
Yep.
you overwork. The best ideas are the ideas that come when you're doing other things. So
Yep.
if you're only doing the same thing, you're exhausting your brilliance. You're exhausting the way you make money. It is much more important to cross train. I personally believe in having different projects in different phases so that you aren't exhausting yourself like at the gym. You don't just do bicep curls
Yeah.
because your tricep
Yeah.
is going to affect your
Have
joints
a
and
leg
that.
day. Yeah.
Leg day, right? Yes. You got to have that
So
strong core.
how do you, okay, this is something I'm learning. I prior experiences I've had when I quit my job and tried to go it alone, I didn't know what to do, so I would just end up watching TV, right? Like I didn't have any direction, frankly. So now what I'm learning is with help from friends, I'm like, oh, I actually enjoy all these different things I'm doing. So I kind of am excited to leap out of bed. Not everything, but mostly leap out of bed and just, go do all these things. And then if I feel like taking a nap, I take a nap. Um, my question is, how do you juggle all of the projects and quote unquote businesses that you are working on?
It's definitely a moving target, and I I get a lot of free advice about it. A lot of people tell
Mm,
me I should focus on one thing at a time, but that's not how my brain works.
yeah.
So, I will tell you I don't go at 100% in all of my businesses. I have so it's
Mm,
personal. And I have found that for me, it's a seasonal model. In
I
business,
love
they
it.
call it a quarter model. I use the seasons because Taurus rising, I'm very connected to the earth. And so it's like, okay, what do I want in 2025? Well, my big goal is the female one-person show that's going to
Yeah.
be in Toronto. That's my one big goal. Okay. Well, first I have to write it, quarter one. Quarter two, I have to refine it and start to build contacts in Toronto. Quarter three is production. We're going to be doing that show in Toronto. Quarter four is follow up because boy, do I want to get a real production funded, right? That's my quarter. And then when it comes to multiple businesses, I usually say that I have four. The one that
Okay.
lights me up, the one woman show, is the lead. Okay, what are my goals for the other three businesses? And then I feather those around. And so if
Mm,
it's a big writing quarter for my writing stuff, I'm not doing a bunch of blogs for my coaching business. I'm not launching a new course in my coaching business. I'm maybe pursuing speaking gigs because
hmm.
that's a couple emails every day. It doesn't cause a lot of creative energy.
Yep.
Heard a very smart screenwriter producer speak once, and she says, I always have four projects. And I was like, me too. And the first one is the one that I'm dreaming about. I work on that first thing in the morning when I'm freshest. Then there's the one I'm writing. I do that before I go to work. The third one, she was in a writer's room. She was staffed in a writer's room. There's one I'm refining. That's the one
Ooh,
that's in the editing process. And the fourth one is the one that's out there. That's the one I'm promoting. And I have
okay.
2 hours every day where I do each of those for my different projects. And I thought,
I love it.
yes, always have one business in the dream space, always have one that is in the generative space, have one that's in the refining space, and one that is in the marketing, putting it out there, pitching space. That's the secret.
I love it so much. So you and I did the Chase Jarvis coaching together,
Yeah.
and um, I missed basically one and a half of I was traveling and whatnot. But anyhow, I got some really juicy nuggets out
Oh, he's
of.
wonderful.
Oh, he's amazing. All about, his book, Never Play It Safe,
Yeah.
and Creative Calling. And just, one of the things he talked about, and you'll hear like Gary Vee talk about and other um, creatives, is just focus on one thing, or you'll hear the opposite. So you could argue for both, but I love this idea of seasons because in the art world, I would have a creating season and I would have a showing season, and such like that. So I love this idea of, um, keeping it interesting and going back to Liz Gilbert, some people are, what does she call it? Jackhammers and some are hummingbirds. So you have to have both to make the world go around, where you're doing a bunch of things and you're cross-pollinating. And then there are some people that like this is the one thing they do and this is all they do.
Yes, I get that advice all the time. You need to focus on one thing. And I just think, but that's not how my brain works.
There you
The minute
go.
it feels like work and I just have to sit down and put my nose to the grindstone is the minute I'm not in love with it. And
Yeah,
I know if I am not passionate about it, I will not do my best work. So it's a waste of
yeah,
time. I
yeah,
don't need to sentence myself to get work done. But the thing that's lighting me up, the thing I'm inspired about, that I can go and do until I'm tired. And
yeah.
then I can go and read a book on something else that I'm working on. There are all these
Cool.
ways to work on our creative projects, and yet we think it's sit at the desk and do
Yeah,
the work. And yet there's layers of work around
yeah.
creativity.
I studied art basically, and I painted for 20 years. And if I would have sort of stayed there, um, and forced myself with the traditional model of showing and selling my work, I was not getting joy out of it. I wanted more. I wanted to write. I'm absolutely loving this podcast, and there's probably more that I have never done or know about that's going to come into my life down the road. And if you don't follow your curiosity and your joy, you will never know. You will miss out, you know?
I truly believe that creativity is our life force and it is pointing
Mhm.
us towards what we're supposed to do. And sometimes you have to, in my case, step back from the thing that you thought you were going to do forever and learn about accounting and marketing and business
Yeah.
development to come out the other side a one woman creator. Like
Yeah.
I never saw that coming. And yet I needed all of those stages to get to where I am now. I have this fabulous blog post I sent out recently, and it's like, I took art history in that period. I took swimming. I took
Yeah.
yoga teaching. I did all of these things because they were what interested me. And then I wanted to make a feature film in a closet during COVID because we couldn't take our one
Mm.
man show to Iceland. And so you better believe the stamina of all those yoga and swimming lessons allowed me to like
Yes.
continue to be in the closet with my actor. The art history class allowed me to create a visual frame without any other support as a one woman film crew. And but is that why I did those things? No. But when
Mm-mm.
the
No.
opportunity came, I had all these skills that allowed me to be better at it because I had chased creativity and curiosity.
You were ready. So there's that quote, when opportunity meets preparation, that's when it happens. And that's I completely identify with that. Like all those years of painting, all those years of being a manager, everything I learned, even in the corporate world, I apply it to what I do every day today,
That's
to
right.
owning a business, you know?
You don't leave any of it behind. You just get better. Because
Mm,
truly, being a creative is being an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, you are creating the invoices, you are
yeah.
paying the taxes, you are doing the marketing, you are making sure you have the insurance you need. You need so many skills. And
Woo!
they did not teach those to me at NYU. I had to teach myself
No.
those. And none of them are hard, but they're not taught in a way that makes them accessible for creative brains. And that's
Yes.
some of where my coaching and my business development work has really come out of is like, you can do this. It's not
Mhm.
hard. It's just not done in a way that feels accessible. And so if we can translate what is identifiable or shift a little bit the parts that feel hard for creative brains, it's very doable. It's not hard. It's
Mm.
just not spoken in a way that feels understandable.
I'm glad you said that because I'm a visual person. I'm a creative brain, and oftentimes things feel inaccessible to me or something too hard to grasp. But when people put it in visual, um, bullet point terms for me, even when I was getting my breast cancer diagnosis, and the doctor said, okay, you're going to do this, and he literally drew a diagram and bullet pointed it. That is how I can intake and absorb and retain information and frankly understand it. If there's a visual element to any kind of teaching or in books, um, I will retain the information so much better and be able to sort of action on it, you know? Um,
You really need to know how you work.
yeah,
I mean, that can be your brain, that's also your heart and your gut and your intuition. You need to know what your drivers are. And once you do, everything else is a formality. Because
yeah,
just as you discover, you can teach yourself anything if you know how you learn.
yeah. I wanna talk about AI, but before we do that, I'm gonna sort of pause, and if it's okay with you, we'll do it as a little bonus section for my subscribers.
Love it.
Because the AI piece, because we talked about it during our coaching with Chase, I actioned on it and I was like, oh, now I'm friends with Claude. So,
Oh,
you
Claude's my
know.
boyfriend. Yes.
Yay! So, we're going to kind of wrap up. Is there anything else that you want people to know?
Well, I would love to invite them to check out my course, How to Slay Your Money Monsters. You can find that on my website, selftrustfund.com. Self-trust, because that is the root of everything, and trust fund, because we are building the financial foundation of our future. And so, How to Slay Your Money Monsters is an 8 lesson audio course that really goes into how to identify a money monster, how to overcome the money monster, how to befriend them, and ultimately how to slay them. So you can take the steps you need to fund your best creative life.
I love it. I'm so excited. And I'm going to put all of that in the show notes.
Perfect.
And is there anything else, maybe just mention again how people can find you, also for your acting and creative projects as well?
I would be happy to do that. So the foundation of my creative work is on my website, rhiannabasore.com, and on Instagram, Rhianna Basore Official. And all of my money coaching work is through Self Trust Fund, selftrustfund.com, and Self Trust Fund, at Self Trust Fund. So I keep those universes separate because the creative business is me, Rhianna Basore, Rhianna Basore Official, and Self Trust Fund is the embodiment of my learning around money and business.
I love it. And you're setting such an example for me, even because, I think about sort of the decluttering and then the writing and podcasting, and those are two separate worlds for me. But I juggle between the two all day, every day.
That's right.
So,
We
yeah.
contain multitudes.
Yep, exactly. Well, thank you so much. I so appreciate you, and I loved our conversation.
Thank you, Juliet. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm so grateful you were able to join us today. Please share and like and review this podcast. Also, if you have any comments or questions about anything, I would love to hear from you. You can reach me at julietricci@gmail.com, and info is in the show notes. Till next time, have a great week.